Hey squad, Sykes here and welcome back to another Halo Infinite video here on InstallationX. Today I'm going to be giving you my full Halo Infinite campaign review, so be warned, this video will contain full spoilers for Halo Infinite's story and collectibles. So, let's jump in. One of the big questions I was pondering before the release of Halo Infinite was whether we would see Atriox, the leader of the Banished, present in this campaign. Well, I'm happy to say that we got to see Atriox within the opening cutscene. Oh, and he wasn't just there, he was kicking the crap out of the Master Chief. Strong start. We discovered that the Banished have attacked the Infinity and that Atriox was the one who threw Master Chief into the void of space before he was recovered by Echo 216, the Pelican pilot, 6 months later. Very early on we get a sense that Chief is going to have to try and piece together exactly what has happened in the past 6 months. His first point of call is to attempt to disrupt the Banished invasion of Zeta Halo, and Chief goes all boom boom on the Banished warship Grabakan, severely damaging the ship. Chief discovers that the Infinity is missing along with many of its 7,000 personnel, most of whom have been killed in combat. So right out of the gate we are led to believe that Cortana is missing, Atriox is believed to be dead, and the whole UNSC is pretty screwed. Productive beginning. Deciding that sitting ducks in Banished controlled space is a bad idea, Chief heads down to the ring to find a weapon, which later turns out to be an AI called the Weapon. The Weapon was under instructions to infiltrate the installation, imitate Cortana to lock her down for deletion, and after the mission was a success, the Weapon's own deletion sequence would activate, and she would be gone too. Only the Weapon wasn't deleted, so next we must figure out why not. What transpires for much of the campaign is the Chief, the Weapon, and Echo 216 travelling across areas of the broken Zeta Halo to halt the advance of the Banished and disrupt their plans. However, Chief and the Weapon grow concerned that the Banished are trying to unearth something that was not meant to be found. This brings them face to face with the Harbinger, a member of a new alien species with highly advanced powers trying to release someone called the Endless. All this is going on whilst the new leader of the Banished, Escharum, is attempting to stop Chief by sending out his Spartan killers to assassinate Chief. Fun times. All this then leads to a climax when it is revealed that over the past months and years, Cortana has attacked the UNSC at Sydney, has blown up Laconia Station with the help of a rogue AI, killing 50 Spartan 4s, and to top it all off, went full Death Star mode and destroyed the brute homeworld of Dosiak after Atriox refused to submit to her. This then leads to Atriox leading his Banished forces to seize the ring and attempt to take control in the hope of using its deadly power. All whilst being in league with the Harbinger to help her free the Endless for some grander purpose that wasn't fully revealed in this campaign. Finally, the Chief and the Weapon take out the remaining Spartan killers along with Escharum and face off in a final showdown against the Harbinger, defeating her and ultimately stopping her from releasing the Endless. Now this quick overview of the narrative doesn't do some of the most exceptional parts of the campaign justice. I could spend another 20-minute video just talking about the plot alone. What makes Halo Infinite's story rank amongst the best in the series is its ability to pull in threads from other campaigns and make them sing in harmony with one another. The biggest thing that 343 accomplished, although it would later be slightly disappointing based on how brilliant Infinite's campaign is, was to bring the story back to basics. A smaller cast of characters to develop a grounded story centered around Chief and the Weapon, a resolution to Cortana's arc, and some genuine villains that we get to experience up close and personal for the first time since Halo 2. In my view, Halo 5's biggest narrative mistake was having an overly bloated cast of characters, whilst leaving next to no time to develop them in half-baked cutscenes and an over-reliance on exposition, that by the end of it was tedious and boring. Halo Infinite is the complete opposite. This time around, we get to spend extended time with Chief to see that he is carrying the UNSC's defeat heavy on his shoulders. He's tired, worn out, full of guilt by holding himself responsible for Cortana's actions and feeling like he failed to protect her and stop the events post Halo 5 from happening. Infinite's Chief is honestly the most human we have ever seen him, carrying on the human versus machine subplot introduced in Halo 4. This time, we get to see Chief's humanity front and centre. He is very self-aware that he was created to be different, even going as far as talking about his own programming this time, which can affect how he views certain situations. This is brilliantly countered by Echo 216, later revealed to be Fernando Esparza, the human Pelican pilot who is terrified, scared, and longing to go home. Chief and Esparza play off against each other brilliantly, which lead to some intriguing cutscenes where we see more of the methodical Chief focus on the mission and the bigger picture, whilst the pilot is very selfish at points, only worried about his own skin. The energy between the two feeds into one another. We see Chief become more vulnerable and willing to open up to help Esparza, who later turns out just to be a civilian engineer, not even a soldier, who had stolen the Pelican from the Infinity. whilst Esparza begins to come to terms with the importance of their situation and begins to find the courage and bravery demonstrated by Chief in order to succeed. However, both the Chief and Esparza fall short of the exceptional performance that Jen Taylor puts in as the weapon. She is undoubtedly the star of this campaign. She differs from Cortana in several ways, being far wittier and humorous, almost coming across a little juvenile like a teenager. She's far more expressive in her body language and incredibly engaging. The weapon's arc focuses around discovering who she really is, an exact copy of Cortana, and how her purpose was to be a short-lived AI who is now growing into a fully fledged and meaningful new companion for Chief. The relationship between Chief and the weapon is excellent, with highs and lows as the two begin to discover more about one another. Chief is full of self-doubt around the weapon being an exact copy of Cortana, and at one point is willing to delete the weapon, fearful of this being a repeat of Cortana's downfall. The weapon is obviously furious, and for the first time we see some real genuine strain between the super soldier and his AI companion. It is excellent, and I can't wait to see more from both of them in the future. A shout out must go to Jen Taylor, who performed as the weapon, Cortana and Halsey in Flashback Hardlight Memories. 3 performances, all voiced with an incredible range. Jen was amazing in this game. So what about the bad guys? Well, Escharum is very much the focus of this initial campaign, and he is very good as the main villain. This is because 343 gives us time to understand his motives and plans. We get cutscenes dedicated to Escharum, the Harbinger, and other influential banished characters such as Jega Radomni. Escharum is a banished war chief on his last legs and wanting to go out with a bang, fighting the Master Chief, win or lose. He focuses much of his energy trying to taunt Master Chief into making mistakes and ultimately facing him in battle. It is simple but very effective for the role that Escharum plays here. This then brings us to the big guy, Atriox. Now, when it was revealed that Atriox was dead at the beginning of the campaign, I did not buy it. I said to myself, there is no way they are going to do a repeat of the Didact from Halo 4 and kill the main villain off screen. I would have rioted. So it was great to see Atriox very present with Cortana in the Hardlight echoes that acted as memories played out through many of Infinite's 14 main missions. Atriox is filled with rage towards humanity for the fact that one of their AIs had destroyed his home planet. However, as ever, Atriox does not become blinded, staying methodically focused on the bigger picture, which is presumably the Endless, after it's revealed that Atriox is very much alive in the post-credits scene, dropping the first seed in place for the next installment of Infinite's campaign, where we'll likely see Atriox take up the mantle as the series' main villain as expected. Atriox is going to be a serious threat to Chief, which he even mentioned himself when talking about how Atriox took him out surgically. This lays the foundation for when the two next meet face to face, and how desperate the Chief will be to right that wrong. The Harbinger's role was probably the weakest out of the villains, but not due to a lack of care or creativity, but because her role was very much setting up for the future. She was arguably the best boss fight the series has ever had, and narratively her role is fulfilled in the sense that she had introduced the seemingly next galactic threat of the series, the Endless. The issue for the Harbinger is that she was sold a little short based on the fact that we still don't really know who the Endless are yet and how much of a threat they pose. That brings us to Cortana, who is very present but not in her usual form. We see her through Hardlight echo memories, and boy do we see her at her worst. However, we also get to see her try and redeem herself, bringing her arc to a close. Realising Atriox plans to use the ring, Cortana sacrifices herself to destroy Zeta Halo and preventing the Banished from operating the ring against humanity. Cortana acts as a mirror for the weapon as she comes to terms with the fact that she is Cortana. The weapon grows increasingly concerned that she is capable of the same atrocities that Cortana commits. Cortana's arc concludes in a satisfying way whilst leaving the door open for the weapon to become the new version of Cortana. There were a few things I would have liked to have seen with Infinite's story, but these are minor gripes. Firstly, I would have loved to have had more from Escharum and the Spartan Killers in more cutscenes, as the ones we got were awesome. I'd have also liked more interaction between Chief and the Spartan Killers, especially Hyperius. A lot was made about Hyperius having Locke's Hunter helmet and chestplate on his armour, but at no point was this ever referenced in the campaign, which seemed odd and a missed opportunity. The final issue is that I still feel there is a lot of unresolved arcs from Halo 5 that I want to see played out in the games and not binned into some novel that will come out later. I feel that several characters such as Locke deserve a second chance. Here's hoping for some smaller DLC stories, a bit like Hivebusters in Gears 5 will come later on down the road. Halo Infinite's campaign is unique to the franchise as it is the first mainline Halo title outside of the Halo 3 ODST spin-off to go open world, and boy oh boy has it paid off in spades. My concern going in was that it would pull me too far out of the traditional Halo experience. However, 343 managed to strike an excellent balance using the so-called narrative golden path to embed the more traditional linear mission structure, which is then countered by the open world Zeta Halo that can be explored for side missions and collectibles. Zeta Halo acts as more of a zonal open world, with the main story missions taking you to new sections of the fragmented ring that by the end of the story is fully open for you to explore. The main story missions follow a linear path and for the most part all take place inside either Forerunner or Banished structures, with the player then freely exploring the exteriors and environments available on Zeta Halo. There is one thing that Halo Infinite destroys every other past title on. The Forerunner architecture of this ring is exceptional, and I think these are the areas that truly get to see how much the extra year of development has paid off on. The lighting is exceptional, the tone of the structures goes back to that epic ancient alien tone that the original trilogy was trying to strike. Forerunner structures had designs that were simple, clean and effective, and it felt like the natural continuation from the Ark in Halo 3, added with an extra layer of atmosphere such as the vapour and smoke, giving this ring character that we haven't seen before. There are so many threads throughout the world that 343 have clearly reflected on from previous titles. We had the return of a gondola ride like the one of Delta Halo from Halo 2. We had piston drops from Halo 2. We got imposing dark areas that brought back memories of the library in Halo Combat Evolved. Everything from a design perspective felt like the natural continuation from where we were 14 years ago with Halo 3. It truly blew me away. That was then countered with the fresh new balance structures, which were a complete contrast. Darker, grittier tones came through with the very imposing Banished structures like the Tower and the House of Reckoning. These massive bases felt like fleas that were attached to the white coat of a cat. They stood out in an obvious way, digging themselves deep into the ring's surface, latching on and refusing to yield. The colour palettes here were also excellent, from the dark greys and blacks of the Banished cast off against the red lighting. It all felt rather menacing. Contrasted against the blues, greys and golds of the Forerunner structures, which gave an air of authority and superiority. The architectural designs of the structures on this ring were fantastic. In the open world we had a vast array of peaks and valleys that could be traversed brilliantly by the grapple shot, more on that later. The hexagonal pillars of the ring trying to repair itself were ever present, often used as stepping stones to get up to the heights of the tallest peaks. They were visually greatly improved from where we saw them last year, benefiting from that extra polish time. The day-night cycle worked very well, giving everything a different atmosphere depending on the time of day that you approach scenarios. There were a couple of missteps, however. The biggest issue I had with Infinite's campaign is that the lack of environmental diversity and biomes is clear as day, especially when you compare it to past Halo titles. Even though the Forerunner and Banished interiors are brilliantly crafted along with the Pacific Northwest inspired biome of Zeta Halo, that is all we get, repeatedly, throughout the whole campaign. When you compare this to different biomes of just the Ark alone in Halo 3, it becomes very apparent that over time Halo Infinite does get a little bland visually. Especially when you think of how great Behemoth is with its desert biome, I did feel a little shortchanged. The other thing as well is that I find it difficult to move around the map in standard vehicles such as the Mongoose, Warthog and Razorback. With the terrain being so rocky and heavy on trees, it can feel a real challenge to just get on with driving when you have been pinged all over the place after hitting another rock or tree. I would have appreciated more of an opportunity to bomb it across Zeta Halo at breakneck speed with as little less interruption. What truly shines in Halo Infinite's campaign is the sandbox. Weapons and equipment get a whole new lease of life in the campaign compared to its multiplayer counterpart. All the weapons for me play brilliantly in the campaign, minus the now nerfed plasma pistol. 343 did a great job of placing you in scenarios where it was more beneficial to utilise certain weapons over others. Who knew I would be spending so much time using the Sentinel beam against Sentinels and loving it? I personally do feel the overall vehicle sandbox though is one of the weakest in the franchise. I feel like vehicles have hardly any health, as I can call in a Wasp at an FOB just for it to easily be shot down moments later. I also feel that some of the physics are off with the Mongoose and Warthog. I would hit the smallest rocks or bumps and instantly be sent flying, having to flip my vehicle. It just feels like they are light as a feather and a sudden gust of wind would knock them off course. The heavier vehicles like the Scorpion are fantastic though. I enjoyed the Wraith as well, even with its slight change, now that I've had a chance to get into one, but the Banshee's handling just feels too responsive compared to past iterations for me personally. The equipment sandbox also gets additional makeover with tiers of upgrades available for the grapple shot, threat sensor, drop wall and thrusters along with your armor shields. The grapple shot is the standout star as it gives you so much freedom to approach scenarios from any angle. I enjoyed the threat sensor more as it was very useful against cloaked elites. However, I hardly ever felt the necessity to change to the drop wall or thruster. They did feel like a bit like an afterthought compared to the others for me. Outside the main missions, we get several side missions and additional content to sink our teeth into. Liberating forward operating bases and banished outposts was very enjoyable. I didn't mind freeing the marine squads for some extra valor, but it never felt essential. Valor is handy if you want to get more goodies sent to the FOBs late game, especially a Wasp, which gives you aerial freedom to move across the whole map, which is awesome. I really found myself getting into collecting all of the audio logs scattered around the ring and the main missions, as they provide additional narrative context to some of the things that had transpired on the ring. They were really enjoyable to listen to. The enemy types are all excellently balanced for me. I forgot how much I missed the brutes, as they give such a gameplay contrast compared to the elites. The skimmers were a neat addition, although I was getting frustrated with the fact that they were all carrying shock rifles on heroic. They were kind of the new jackal snipers in a way. It's the boss fights that really take this campaign up a notch though. They are not some really long drawn out boss fights with several phases like that of an RPG, however they are well placed challenges that require you to take your time and think about the moves you need to make to prevent being splattered against the wall with a gravity hammer. 343 Industries took a big chance by mixing up the campaign formula of Halo Infinite. Bringing the series into an open world that is not overwhelming or filled with fodder was an absolute masterstroke. The sandbox of Infinite is allowed to shine, giving players the freedom to express themselves and approach gameplay scenarios their own way, coupled with a very strong narrative, greatly improved dialogue and character development that brings the story back from the brink after Halo 5 has provided a very strong foundation for the series to build on moving forward. Halo Infinite's campaign has its issues, but for me personally they are minor and did not drag me out of one of the most immersive Halo experiences I've had for well over a decade. Quite simply, for me, Halo Infinite's campaign is incredible. Well squad, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please make sure you leave a like, head over to InstallationX and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications of future uploads. Let me know your thoughts on Halo Infinite's campaign in the comment section below. Follow myself and the channel on social media with links in the description. And as always, I'm Sykes, and for more on Halo Infinite and all things Xbox, stay tuned to InstallationX. Bye guys.